lesson number 34, I'll be talking about how to evaluate a situation in a game. When we play Shogi, we read several moves ahead. How far you can read depends on how good a player you are, but anyway, we'll never be able to read all the way to the end of the game, right? Even professional players can't. Well, it's true, they can read hundreds of moves. So if the game goes on a direct road, they can read it to the end, yes. But we always have branches in the moves, so the number of the moves increases exponentially, and it's impossible to read all the moves. So the thing is, you have to stop reading at some point and determine your next move. And to help you determine that, you have to be able to judge whether the situation at several moves ahead that you've read is a good situation for you or not. To judge this, you have to learn how to evaluate a situation in Shogi game. And we have 4 evaluation items for evaluating a situation. Item number 1, material balance. Material balance is whether you have more pieces than your opponent or not. In the opening, we should be sensitive to even the number of the pawns you have. If you have only 8 pawns and the opponent has 10 in the opening, that's a negative point to you. But except the opening, we don't care much about the number of the pawns. We only calculate material balance with other pieces than the pawns. You can use the piece valuations you've seen in lesson number 10. And you have to remember that if you lose a piece, it's not only that the piece count decreases, but also the opponent's piece count increases. So it's much a bigger difference than you think. Item number 2, piece efficiency. Piece efficiency is whether your pieces on the board is effectively placed so that they can do good jobs. How about this situation? You see here, these pieces is left far from the issue point of the game and doing nothing, and they'll be just taken by your opponent. While his pieces are well placed toward the center and doing a good job here, we call this kind of piece a playing piece, which isn't doing its job. So even if you're winning in material balance, it's meaningless if you have more playing pieces. So you have to be always careful not to make playing pieces, okay? And item number 3 is castle stiffness. Castle stiffness is how hard your king's defense is. It means whether your king is protected by a good castle or not. Even when you're winning in the above 2 items I've mentioned, you can lose a game if your king isn't protected hardly enough. Item number 4 is the turn to play. This item means which player has the initiative move to play at the situation. Well, I've mentioned something about initiative move in the endgame lesson too, but let me explain it again here, in case you haven't fully understood it. Having the initiative move doesn't mean that the player simply has the turn to play. In this example, let's suppose he moves this silver. So it's your turn to play, right? But we don't say you have the initiative move here, because you have to let it escape anyway. And now he's the one who can select the next move. Again, you have to deal with his drop. So still he has the initiative. And again, you still don't have the initiative. And if he takes the lance, now it's your turn to make an initiative. So, at this position, maybe you shouldn't take this pawn. you can attack before he takes the lance, although this attack is too powerful and it seems you're losing. And also, when he moves the silver here, if you take it and abandon your rook, you can get the initiative move next, right? So, item number 4 is which player has the initiative move. It's an important factor in evaluating a situation. Alright, so you can evaluate a situation in these 4 items, but the weights of these items vary according to the stage in the game. In the opening and the early stage of the middle game, material balance is the most important. But in the middle game, piece efficiency gets more and more important. And as it approaches to the end game, item number 3 and 4 become more important. Alright, let's practice doing the situation evaluation with some examples. Try to evaluate this game. Center gain 1 pawn. But here, Gote makes a powerful attack. Alright, how's the material balance? They've exchanged gold and silver, so they both have 4 generals, and it's equal to even. But Sente gained a bishop, so Sente has an advantage of 1 bishop. How about piece efficiencies? Well, there's a big gap in the efficiencies of the dragon and the rook, and this silver is left as a playing piece. So Gote's efficiency is much better. And castle stiffness, Gote's king is much harder. And the turn to play? Well, it's Sente's turn to play, but his goal is being attacked, so he has to deal with it. So it means Gote has the initiative move here, and it seems he can restore his material loss. So in total, this situation is good for Gote. How about this situation? Let's start with material balance. For the knights and the lances, Sente has this lance and this knight here, and the lance and the knight on the left are gone, but he has 2 lances in hand. So it's almost even for knights and lances. And metal pieces, gold, gold, silver, silver, silver. So he gained 1 metal piece. And major pieces, his bishop is here, but the rook is on the opponent's piece stand. So Sente has lost a rook. So it's an exchange with the rook and the metal piece. So Gote has an advantage in material balance. And how about piece efficiencies? Well, this knight and the pawn is doing a pretty good job. And as for the horses, there's a difference in the efficiencies of these 2 horses. Well, this horse is pretty good because you can use it efficiently like this. But this horse is difficult to use, right? And also, this knight is almost a playing piece. And also, Sente has a better castle stiffness. And well, the turn to play is, now it's Gote's initiative. Maybe he'll play this, I don't know. So, in total, you can say Sente is better here. Well, it's a little difficult to learn how to evaluate the situation first, but you'll get used to it as you keep playing Shogi. Alright. Alright, that's all for this lesson. See you next time.